First of all, let me say thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Former head of the FBI, Los Angeles, California, retired in 1979. By the way, this conspiracy involves pornography, drugs, corruption, involves pedophilia, involves organized child kidnapping rings, the finders out of Washington, D.C., CIA cover, covert operation, involved in the international trafficking of children, terrorism, bank accounts. But my Missing Children lecture documents that the finders, an organization in Washington, D.C., this CIA front. It's a covert operation. They're involved in the international trafficking of children. After one of my lectures, a gentleman came up and gave me a book. He said, "Ted, here's what it's all about. Take this book and read it." Anyway, it's called Pawns in the Game, and it's by William Guy Carr. William Guy Carr had the same problem I did. He wanted to know what's going on in America and around the world. He was a Canadian, however, and as a result of his research, he wrote this book. So we have the Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati was established in 1776 by a fellow named Adam Weishaupt. In 1773, he was commissioned by one of the Rothschilds to put together an organization called the Illuminati. And he culminated his work in May the 1st, 1776. If you'll notice, that's a communist holiday. And the goals that he was commissioned to set up, there were 25 of them. Number one issue was men are inclined to evil rather than good. Number two goal and issue was to preach liberalism. Number three, use the ideas of freedom to bring about class wars. That's what we're doing today. Number four, any and all means should be used to reach our goals as they are justified. Number five, their rights lie in force. Number six, the power of our resources must remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained the strength that no cunning or force can undermine it. Number seven, advocated mob psychology to obtain control of the masses. Number eight, use alcohol, drugs, moral corruption, and all forms of vice to systematically corrupt the youth of the nation. I mean, I don't need to document that one. How about South Central LA, CIA drug operations coming in there? How about Mena, Arkansas? Drugs coming into this country, arms and munitions going out. During the recent drug hearings by Mr. Arlen Specter, Senator Arlen Specter, one of the big phonies of Washington, D.C., the magic bullet theorist, and that hearing was about bringing drugs into South Central LA by the CIA. I sent him a list of 16 names of people who had personal, direct knowledge of drugs being brought into this country by the CIA. Never heard another word. None of those people ever appeared as witnesses. I might also mention in Oklahoma City, I sent my report to the committee. I sent them a fax and said I had information which would be vital to your investigation of the Oklahoma City bombing. Never received a response. Number nine, seize property by any means. We're seeing that on a daily basis. Farmers, businessmen, people who are arrested on nebulous charges, their property is being taken away from them. Number 10, deal with the use of slogans such as equity, liberty, fraternity into the mouths of the masses in psychological warfare. Boy, if that isn't Bill Clinton, I never saw it and never heard it before. That man is unbelievable. As former Congressman Dennemeyer describes him, he's a draft-dodging, womanizing, pathological liar, and he certainly fits into item number 10. Number 11 dealt with war, and the war should be directed so that the nations on both sides are placed further in debt and peace conferences conducted so neither combatants obtain territorial rights. Yalta. Perfect example. Stalin, Roosevelt, Winston Churchill after World War II. Number 12 told those present that they must use their wealth to have candidates chosen to public office who would be obedient to their demands and would be used as pawns in the game by the men behind the scenes. The advisors will have been bred, reared, and trained from childhood to rule the affairs of the world. Number 13, control the press. If you heard my lecture yesterday on Oklahoma City, I documented that the mainstream media is being controlled by the big power people, by the phony politicians, by the bureaucrats, without any question about it. Number 14, their agenteurs will come forward after fomenting traumatic situations and appear to be the saviors of the masses when they are actually interested in just the opposite, the killing of the masses. The riots in Watts, the riots in South Central LA, folks. Number 15, create industrial depression and financial panic, unemployment, hunger, shortage of food. Use this to control the masses or the mobs, and use the mobs to wipe out all those who dare to stand in the way. Well, I'll tell you right now, every expert I've talked to is talking about food shortage. Number 17, expound the value of systematic deception. Use high-sounding slogans and phrases and advocate lavish promises to the masses, even though they cannot be kept. What's the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats high up? Nothing. Zero. Number 18, detail plans for resolution. Discuss the art of street fighting, which is necessary to bring the population to a speedy subjection. Number 19, use their agentures as advisors behind the scenes after wars through secret diplomacy to gain control. Number 20, establish huge monopolies toward world government control. We're seeing that today, the huge monopolies. Number 21, use high taxes and unfair competition to bring about economic ruin by controlling raw materials, organized agitation among the workers, and subsidizing competitors. GATT, NAFTA. Number 22, build up armaments with police and soldiers sufficient to protect our interests. Number 23, members and leaders of the one world government would be appointed by the director. Okay, Presidential Directive 25 allows the president, by the way, this is classified, secret, not available to the general public, allows and orders that the President of the United States, in the event of a conflict or a crisis in this country, transfers the power, his powers, over to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Number 24, infiltrate into all classes and levels of society, of government, for the purpose of fooling, bemusing, and corrupting the youth members of society by teaching them theories and principles that we know to be false. This is the outcome-based education program being shoved down our throats by the United Nations. Number 25, national and international laws should be used to destroy civilization. There's talk about the world population being decreased to 500 million, the United States population being decreased to 20 million. What are we talking about here? One of the driving forces behind this movement, the Illuminati, is the Satanic Cult movement in this country today. I said, what in the world is this all about? I don't know anything about Satanism. I'd heard the word, and that's about it. From the Bible, of course. So I began my little journey forward. And one of the matters that I developed information about was an individual I learned about was Aleister Crowley. He likes to have his name pronounced Crowley to rhyme with holy. And the Satanists today, and for the number of years in the past, have basically used his philosophy and his writings as a guide. So let's talk about some of his writings and teachings. And here we have of the bloody sacrifice, and here we have the blood is the life. It would be unwise to condemn as irrational the practice of those savages who tear the heart and liver from an adversary and devour them while yet warm. In any case, it was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy, varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of the animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. The animal should therefore be killed within the circle. We're talking about the satanic circle, or the triangle, as the base may be, so that its energy cannot escape. An animal should be selected whose nature accords that with that of the ceremony. Thus, by sacrificing a female lamb, one would not obtain any appreciative quantity of the fierce energy useful to a magician who was invoking Mars. In such a case, a ram would be more suitable, and this ram should be virgin. The whole potential of its original total energy should not have been diminished in any ways. And now listen to this sentence, folks, closely. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force, a male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable system. We're talking about human sacrifices. There are, in my estimation, over 3 million practicing Satanists in America today. Anyway, we're talking about human sacrifice. About 50 to 60,000 individuals are sacrificed every year. There are 8 basic satanic holidays. There are other holidays for the various covens, but there are 8 basic ones that they all honor. One of the theories, we talked about human sacrifice, okay, there it is, right in their book. I mean, I didn't invent that. That's there. Another aspect of their religion, if you want to call it religion, by the way, the federal government does recognize the satanic movement as a religion. Okay, we're talking here about the 666, that's the beast, that's Aleister Crowley himself. Moreover, the beast 666 advises that all children shall be accustomed from infancy to witness every type of sexual act, as also the process of birth, lest falsehood fog and mystery stupefy their minds, whose error else might thwart and misdirect the growth of their subconscious system of self-symbolism. What we're talking about there is children from birth being exposed to sex. These people, the satanic movement in the world, has set up preschools throughout the world for the purpose of getting their hands on our children. The parents drop them off at 9 in the morning, come back and pick them up at 4, 3, 4, 5 at night. In the meantime, in many of these preschools, the children are exposed to sex from the time of birth. It may therefore be considered improper as a general rule for your sexual gratification to destroy, deform, or displease any other star. Mutual consent to the act is the condition thereof. It must, of course, be understood that such consent, and we're talking about sex now, is not always explicit. There are cases where seduction or rape may be emancipation or initiation to another. Such acts can only be judged by the result. What they're saying is, it's all right to rape somebody. I mean, if they don't consent, it's all right to rape them because it's for the cause. Let's talk about the McMartin case. In April 1985, authorities went to the McMartin case and looked for tunnels under the school. The children had said that they were taken into tunnels under the school. There was a chamber down there. They were sexually molested. That involved ceremonies, adults with robes, candles, chanting. Adults had no clothes on under their robes. And they were taken up into a tunnel and a triplex, a bathroom trap door of the triplex next door. They were taken out in automobiles. We're talking about 2, 3, 4-year-old children, folks, and prostituted in the community. The authorities received this complaint in 1983. They began their investigation. The authorities finally, in 1985, went out and decided to look for the tunnels because they said the children were hallucinating. The children also said that they were taken by air up into a mountainous area where they were exposed to satanic ceremonies based on what they described, and brought back in time for the parents to pick up the kids. We found a 9-foot wide subterranean entrance under the west wall of dog room. There were 4 classrooms. That was Ray Bucky's room. The children identified professional football players, professional baseball players, household name actors, actresses, and the son of the leading politician, not a leading politician, the leading politician in Los Angeles as being perpetrators. In addition to the tunnels, I developed information that an abandoned satanic site was in Crestline, California. Crestline, California is in the mountains. The kids said, remember a few minutes ago, they were flown into the mountains. There's an airport 10 minutes from the McMartin preschool. It's Hawthorne Airport. There's a landing strip in Crestline. I heard about this abandoned satanic site, and I went up to the site, took pictures. This is what we found. 666, one of the satanic signs. That's a stone on the site. The house had been up here. The day after the McMartin case broke in the news, the house burned to the ground. This is looking at the opposite direction of the picture we just took. And you can see there's San Bernardino down in there. And you can see that on the side of a mountain like that, nobody's going to find it unless you fly over with a helicopter. That's probably an altar, flattened stone. Also an altar, another altar that had been broken. This is, of course, you recognize the star. Now, this is a satanic symbol. Put the next one up. Hold the first one. There it is right there. Put the first one back on. Now overlay them. Turn it around that way. Okay, any question about that, folks? No. Now let's read what that says. Amsday. Asmodee, a strong and powerful king, appears with 3 heads, the first like a bull, the second like a man, the third like a ram. He has a serpent's tail, the webbed feet of a goose, and he vomits fire. He rides the infernal dragon, carries lance and pennon, and is the chief of the power of Undermine. He must be invoked, be bareheaded, or otherwise he will deceive. He gives the ring of virtues, teaches arithmetic, geometry, and other handicrafts, answers all questions, makes men invisible, indicates the place of concealed treasures, and guards them if within the domain of the Undermine. Oh, what do we got here? Another satanic symbol. You think that wasn't a satanic site? Overlay it. Okay. That is the seal of Amsman scale. I guess that, no, that's the wrong, that's the one before. Belial, a mighty king created next after Lucifer, appears in the form of a beautiful angel seated in a chariot of fire and speaking with a pleasant voice. He fell first amongst the superior angels who went before Michael and other heavenly angels. He distributes preferences of senatorships, causes favors of friends and foes, and gives excellent families. Familiar, he must have offering and sacrifices made to him. Nobody was interested in an abandoned satanic site, even though it appears to have been related to the McMartin case, that it was a satanic operation. And Dr. Roland Summit, UCLA psychiatrist, says, who's done a lot of research in this field also, that there are 50 other preschools in the country where the kids have talked about going down into tunnels. Now, this is another case that I worked out of Philadelphia, similar case to Linda's. And one of the matters that I was going to testify about was the drawings by the kids. And it's not a funny thing, but it's an established fact that children who have been sexually molested for some reason or other, when they're, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, whatever, will invariably draw pictures of their activity, of their exposure to these nefarious matters. Invariably they do that. Now, when I was that age, I was drawing cars and airplanes, and the girls were drawing flowers, right? But these kids invariably will draw these pictures. As you can see from Linda's case, she has pictures at her booth that her children have drawn. Now, this was I was going to go back and testify for Lou, and I was going to say that based upon my reviewing the pictures drawn by the children, they've been exposed to a satanic activity. This is the most telltale of all the pictures. I'm going to show you a series of them. This is a totem pole with a goat's head at the top. Children at the various highest level. I understand, again, I say I understand because I'm not sure, because there's so much secrecy involved in the satanic movement. 8, 10 layers of classes of people within themselves, like the dabblers on up to the very highest level. But from my sources and my informants, I've been told that the various highest level of Satan is a totem pole, which is usually 3 to 6 feet tall, made out of wood, with the goat head at the top. So I was going to testify that based on my experience, that these children were exposed to the highest level of Satan mainly because of this drawing right here, the goat hole, the totem pole with the goat's head. These are some of the other drawings. This is a body on a slab, undoubtedly an altar where they sacrifice in blood. The genitals. And let me mention this also. Children who have never been sexually molested do not draw the genitals. Children who have been sexually molested, a high percentage of them draw the genitals, and so children who have been ritualistically sexually molested, a higher percentage will draw the genitals. Little Matt Bear drew a picture of people, a fire, baby being thrown in the fire, human sacrifice, obviously. An altar, bone, liver, blood, kitty. And another ritual ceremony. Here's trees, people, fire. And another, people have no cloth on, he says. Table, knife, devil. 100,000 children disappear every year per Reader's Digest, July 1982. This is the official U.S. Customs report that establishes the great CIA, under the name Finders, a covert operation, is involved in the international trafficking of children. It's about 9 or 10 pages long. We'll just flip through the pages. The way this case came about is a group of children were seen in a park in Tallahassee, Florida in 1987. The police were called. The men were well dressed. They had a van. Police came out and talked to the kids. The kids said that they were en route to Mexico to a smart school. And the police traced that van back up to the Finders in Washington, D.C. They raided, the Metropolitan Police Department raided the Finders headquarters and also a warehouse. And they found all this paraphernalia. They found information about international trafficking of kids all over the world. The Finder, based on my research subsequent to that, again, CIA covert operation. The customs agent was called into it because of the possibility of pornography, and I guarantee that there was pornography involved. Guarantee, okay? This report is the final interview by the customs agent when he attempted to go over and get more information than he'd already developed. Okay, April 2, I arrived at the Metropolitan Police Department at approximately 9 a.m. Detective Bradley was not available. He was the detective who was supposed to help him. I spoke to a third party who was willing to discuss the case with me on a strictly off-the-record basis. I would advise that all the passport data had been turned over to the State Department. The State Department, in turn, advised the Metropolitan Police that all travel and use of the passports by the holders of the passports was within the law and no action would be taken. This included travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam during the late 50s and mid-70s. Folks, it was illegal to travel there to those countries during that period. The individual further advised me of circumstances which indicated that the investigation into the activity of the Finders had become a CIA internal matter. The Metropolitan Police report had been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn from the investigation several weeks prior, and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division, that's FBI headquarters, by the way, had directed the Metropolitan Police Department not to advise the FBI Washington field office, that's the field office, of anything that had transpired. No further information will be available, no further action will be taken. No action will be taken. The case was closed, and here we have a CIA internal matter. The Finders group, the Finders case organization was founded by a CIA agent back in the early 60s, and here we are, 1987, still operating. I have the man's name, I have all the information on it. A real quick overview: CIA experiments with mind control on children, MK Ultra. This is an outstanding article. It's available in that same report. Just flip the pages. Linda Wiegand, my friend, God bless her, she's a fighter.
I'm here to tell you I'm a living, breathing example of what happens when a satanic cult abuses your children. And sometimes I put slides above the abuse, but after seeing the slides of the children this morning, I think you understand what this is about. And there's pictures over at the booth right out here. The devil to me, maybe 10 years ago, was something that was, I went to Catholic church, I'm still Catholic and Christian. I went to church and the devil was something out there that you didn't want to talk about at night, and you didn't talk about in the dark, and it was just something in science fiction movies. My children disclosed just sexual abuse in early 1993. They were masturbating, they were pulling their pants down at the supermarket. They started having oral sex with my St. Bernard, inserting pens and pencils into the dog's rectum. The behavior got worse and worse and worse. I woke up one morning, I don't usually talk about this stuff, I woke up one morning to the bread, the butcher block that you cut bread on, because I'm a vegetarian, so it wasn't a butcher block. And there was a huge bread knife in the middle of the butcher block with a big pool of ketchup in the middle of it. And that was on my kitchen table. And I said to my children, what is this? Who did this? What does this mean? And my son John said, Mom, this is some of the things that we have to see and that have been done to us. I knew I had a big, big problem, and I had no idea what it was called. I called all over the country. I had children's drawings for the police. My husband was under arrest for sodomy and oral sex with my children. And I had all kinds of drawings that had circles and people with, there was black candles always in the middle of these tables, and all this oral and anal sex pictures. And I went to the Catholic Church and I said, I don't know what this is, but it seems to me these drawings are significant. There are all kinds of symbols I don't understand, and devil heads and goats heads, and I had no idea I did not know what satanic ritual abuse was. Church asked me if I ever had a psychiatric exam, and I said, actually, I'm completely sane. I just know that there's symbols in these pictures. No one would help me. Even though there was a prosecution going on, they said if you ever bring up satanic ritual abuse, your credibility is lost and you'll just be a kook, and it doesn't exist and it's not organized in America. Just focus on child sexual abuse. So I took my children to a child sexual abuse hospital, and while they were being treated, and I had legal custody of my children, and my husband and his lawyers and the judge found out my children were in an expert hospital, they confiscated my house, everything I've ever owned, from my baby pictures to my clothes. I walked away with literally the clothes we had on our backs. Took my cars, my federal post office box mail, my income, my assets. I lost everything by taking my children to an expert on child abuse. It was trying to stop me from what my children could disclose from being uncovered, to try and just break that we had no assets to have my children have medical attention. The children were being treated for sexual abuse, and I had provided all the documentation. And one day the doctor said to me, I need you to come into my office. She said, this is a classic case of SRA. I had no idea. I mean, SRA, is that like an Irish Republican Army thing? I don't know what SRA is. She said, satanic ritual abuse. And she showed me the drawings that the children were doing in her office, and they were of blood sacrifice, of people cutting their arms and dripping blood in chalices, of chalices with devil heads, and on and on and on. It includes group sex. It includes children being killed. And I remember I just felt like my guts were just punched out of my body. I did not know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I called every organization in the country asking for help, children's organizations. And no one wants to acknowledge satanic ritual abuse. And all the child abuse organizations only say that they lobby. They don't actually help people. And so my quest to save my children has taken me here. And as a consequence, and I can tell you here today, there are other mothers who are here today to ask me for help, who have children that were victims of satanic ritual abuse. I heard a story about a little 8-year-old boy. His mom had taken him to protect him, and they were found. And I had been underground for 3 years, by the way. The mother and this little boy were found. The little boy was taken to a basement. He was crucified alive. First he was skinned. When they torture the children, it causes a physical reaction of the endomorphins in your body to just increase because of the terror and the pain. So when the Satanists drink the blood, they actually get like a chemical, a high, like a drug high from the blood of a tortured victim. And this little boy was found in the basement dead, with no blood, skinned alive and crucified. This cannot happen to any more children.